Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. Torah on tap. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihiyah bidvaro. We are in the middle of the laws of Kibbud Av V'Em, and all we're doing right now is we are going through the Shulchan Aruch's laws of Kibbud Av V'Em. We're going straight through them, and we're using that as a springboard to kind of like talk a little bit about the actual laws. The halachot of Kibbud Av V'Em are complicated. They are super complicated, even to the point where, me preparing, I often found that so much of the questions that I had were like, we can't really, you have to ask your local Orthodox rabbi, ask a posek, we don't really know. Like, it's such a fine, everything is so determined specifically to the circumstance that you're in, so that you can get general guidance, but each person, when it comes to their relationship with their parents, the circumstance that they're in, all those things have an impact on how we're going to apply the laws of Kibbud Av V'Em. So there's a story that is told of this. I don't remember who it is. It's Rav Karelitz, so no one that you really know. He was learning, the laws of Kibbud Av V'Em, and he was asking his chavruta, when your parents walk in, do you stand up halfway or do you stand up all the way? He's like, I stand up halfway. He's like, I can't learn with you anymore. He's like, how can I learn with someone who doesn't understand how to apply the laws of Kibbud Av V'Em? If you're not going to live the laws, I can't learn with you. So the next day he came back. He says, now I took on I understand halacha better now, and every time my parents walk in, I 100% stand up. And I think the point of that story isn't to illustrate, his quick turnaround. It's the idea is that, there are halachot, and our job as children is to try to understand them because we want to be the best versions of ourselves. And the halachot are often, we often, I don't know about you, but for me at least, I tend to slide more to like the philosophical, the story, the midrash, the maybe even more rational parts of Judaism, and then the halachot are like nice things, but I don't necessarily, that's not where I spend most of my time. And the truth is that it's in halacha itself, I find at least, that it's in halacha itself where you are training yourselves to think more rationally and to develop a core set of values that enable you to live life in the most meaningful way. So we don't spend enough time learning halacha. And halacha is broad, it's deep, it's beautiful. You see how you have intergenerational thinking, people challenging each other, people questioning their logic and their reason. And in that process of that back and forth, we recognize that, that truth is complicated. But the one thing that's motivating every single one of these discussions and these conversations with these rabbis when it comes to halacha is just this idea of like we want to know what to do. I want to know, what does God want me to do? Are the halachot, d'oraita or d'rabanan? Does it matter? And the answer is yes, it matters, because whether or not something is explicitly stated in the Torah versus a rabbinic decree determines how that halachic principle is carried out on so many different levels. You see this in the laws of Shabbat, and you certainly see in the laws of Kibbud Av V'Em. How we apply the laws matter. So, for example, we touched on this a little bit last time. The idea that if a parent comes to you and rips off your clothing, what's your response? And the Shulchan Aruch says there's no response. You can't do anything to your parents. What happens if your parents, did something to you where you have to take them to court? Are you allowed to Are you allowed to summon your parents to a Beit Din? How do you do that? The answer is you are actually. If there's financial damage that you need to get reimbursed for, but there's a very specific way in how to do it, depending on the damage, depending what was said. How is it said? Can you speak your parent's name? We said that last week. The answer is no. If your parent has a uncommon name, you can't say it. You can't say the name ever. If, let's say, someone's going to ask you to come and, get an aliyah Torah, or someone's asking you, you're going to the doctor's office, they ask you, well, what's your parent's name? How do you describe your parent's name? It matters. If your parents have a title, halachically, you have to refer to your parents by their title first. So it's Dr. Whatever, Samuel, whatever. Then you have to mention the fact that it's a doctor. You can't just say, oh, my dad's name is Sam, Benjamin, or whatever it is, right? Like, you have to go ahead and say the name. And if your father or mother has no official title, like, rabbi or rabbinit or whatever, or doctor or lawyer or whatever it is, whatever the letters are before and after, you have to say Mr. and Mrs., right? Add a title to it. You say Avi Mori, if your father is your teacher. Imi Mori, like whatever, my mother, my teacher, my master, whatever it is. Like you add a title out of a way of just showing some sense of dignity for your parents. And I think that the hardest part of honoring the parents is we know that you can't disagree with your parents publicly in front of them, which is I think that's super hard. Like you're wrong. Like how could you say that? I do that all the time. Sorry, Mom. And but it's something we need to work through for ourselves. But I think even more difficult than disagreeing is agreeing with your parents. Oh yeah, that's true. Can't even do that. You can't go ahead and tell your parent that what you just said is true, because that means you're showing them that your opinion is equal to their opinion. Do you understand how far it goes? Like there has to be some level of humility in that relationship, and therefore that responsibility of bringing that humility onto that relationship is on you, not on them. Question.
Yeah, I got a second question while you're finishing that sentence.
Oh, great. Let's do one at a time.
The simpler one is, are you allowed to say like, oh, I can see that being true? Like, so not, I agree with you, but
Yeah.
like, oh, my little brain that's not equal to yours, like, wraps my head around what you're saying.
No.
No, okay. The other thing is, you said we can't disagree with our parents, we can't criticize them in public or to their
No.
face.
So now there is obviously. So there, first of all, like there are circumstances where if they're saying something that's like dangerous, or they're doing something that is irresponsible. Let's say for example, I had this growing up. My parents were in Shomer Shabbat, right? And so could I say to my mother, that is asur deoraita, you're going to burn in hell, stop it. No, I can't do that. I can't even tell my parents that what they're doing is asur. There's a way to do it. You could say Ma, I think that, there's a pasuk in the Torah that says that lo tevahu esh, you're not supposed to do a fire, and maybe what you're doing might be like in that category. Just think about it. It's out there. That's about it. That's how I could. But that's not. I mean, that's not on you. That your parents have to be the intelligent adults that they are, and they have to take responsibility for their actions. But the point is that the point isn't whether or not they respond. The point is, how are you phrasing the question to them? Are you being considerate to them? You are not your parents' equal no matter what. Even if you're smarter than your parents, you can't denigrate them in any kind of way. Yeah.
I'm thinking more along the lines of like discussing things with siblings, trying to be as careful as possible not to criticize or judge, but when you need to discuss, like when parents are doing something problematic.
By the way, siblings is a problem also. If you have an older sibling, okay, I'm not sure if you want to hear this. Should I not speak about this right now? No, I'm not going to. Who's the oldest in the room? Okay, you speak to me later. I got a lot to share with you. But yeah, it's complicated. Siblings is complicated also. Yeah.
Just to clarify, is this towards biological parents or step-parents and...
Good question. So when it comes to parents, biological step, or let's say even a ger, right? Let's say someone converted, right? So it's actually a machloket for gerim, or let's say parents who are divorced, and one parent raised a kid, and the other parent, you never met the other parent. You don't even know who the parent is, and you just found out who they are. Depending on the circumstances, you still have an obligation to give them that kind of honor. In all cases, the Rambam says that a ger has to give his biological parents kavod. Okay, Rav Moshe Feinstein says he has to also. So it's not only an ancient Sephardic rabbi in Spain and in Egypt, but also a more modern one in America. And even adopted parents also have an aspect of kivud avim that are there as well. And I'd say that most of these things, remember that the whole purpose of halacha itself, we spoke about this over the weeks before, was for you to impress upon yourself. Like, it's not that the halachot are there because you have to honor them for the sake of who they are, but it's more about you honoring them for you. Of course they deserve honor because of whoever they are. But it's more about the process of recognizing that there are important people in the world that require a certain level of reverence. And that reverence isn't going to be imposed on you by society and culture, because that's not our culture and society. There were cultures and societies in the past, certainly where honoring parents, like in certain countries, in Arab countries today, they still have that, right? But for the most part here, kibbutz avim doesn't exist. It doesn't exist at all. Which means that it's a halacha that each of us need to work on even more today. Remember the story of Esther, right? And they say that Esther HaMalkah, had a special zchut. Why? Because she never failed in the mitzvah of kibbutz av v'em because she never met her parents. Right? And therefore she had a special zchut. That's a great riff right there. I just need that like all the time. But she had a special zchut because she didn't have she never made any mistakes. She never sinned with kibbutz av v'em. Again, the point that I'm making is that the halachot are there for you more than it is for them. Now, there are halachot, by the way, for parents and children. A parent is not allowed to abuse a child, not verbally and not physically, especially when they're an adult. It's actually a machloket what an adult consists of. Everyone agrees that a married child, no matter how old they are, is considered an adult, which I think is weird, because I have married children who are definitely not adults, but I guess they are halachically. But the official age is 24. When you're 24 years old, that's when you could say, "Mommy, stop hitting me." No, you can't. Hopefully that's not happening ever. But the reason why, by the way, a parent is not allowed to hit a child is from a halachic place is because of lo titen lamichshal. You're not allowed to put a stumbling block in front of somebody.
How does that apply?
Because if the parent is abusive, then they start associating pain and suffering from the parent, and that will ultimately goes back to God, and it creates a whole entire, slippery slope for a child and their psychology in the world, and it could break them, and therefore, a parent's not allowed to hit a child. Exactly. To the point, I could show you hundreds of sources that say that.
I'm not doubting.
Are you? I'm just joking. But yeah, no. There are several places. Ramosha speaks about it. The Chidah speaks about it. Ben Ish Chai. I mean, there's like so many different sources that speak about it. Harambam speaks about it. So there's definitely sources there that talk about it. Good, reliable sources. I'm just saying they're old and new, and it's a fair question. Shoots, where was I? Stumbling block, right? Stumbling block. So it's there for them as parents' guidelines. If a parent is seen, by the way, in a community overly abusing a child, the community has a responsibility to get involved and protect the child. Just because you're a parent doesn't give you the right to go ahead and just start hitting your kids. Now, how we are hitting, and are there circumstances, a kid crossing the street irresponsibly, they say that that's the right time to do it. I don't know. But there's all kinds of different parenting approaches to these things. The world that I grew up in, certainly there was less sensitivity to children, and there was more of a brute force used against children. And I don't think I turned out so bad. But and I look at the kids in this generation; it's complicated. So I don't know what the right approach is. I think that there are times where a parent has to be strong and forceful, and not be afraid to use their primal voice. And certainly there are times where parents are overstepping boundaries, but part of being a parent is hopefully being a responsible parent. Just like there's a responsibility on a parent to be a responsible parent, there's a responsibility on children, as young adults, everyone in the room, falls into that category, I believe. You have a responsibility to be responsible children as well. Okay, any other questions before we go back inside?
What happens when you work with your father?
Oh, it's a recipe for disaster. Not just joking. You can't tell me about it. It's very complicated because you still have the laws of kibbutz av v'em. So you would have to get special permission from your father to be able to talk to him in business, and not as a daughter to a father, but as a partner to a father, or a chashuv employee that you are to your father, so that you can go ahead and speak freely. Otherwise, it's a problem. Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, it's complicated. Okay, let's look into the sheet. We're in source number 9. Source number 9. Please feel free to interrupt at any point. One is obligated to honor him even after his father's death. How is that? If he says a matter he heard from his mouth, if it is within 12 months of his death, he should say, "So said Father, my teacher," may be an atonement for his resting. But if it is after 12 months, when he mentions him, he could just say in his memory for a blessing. Okay? There's no difference between a father and a mother and all this. Maharil says, some say that if he writes something within the 12 months and mentions his father, he does not need to write, may it be an atonement for his resting. But rather, may his memory be for a blessing. Now, remember we spoke about the idea of a not sitting in a parent's seat, right? Or their place. What happens after a parent dies? Are you allowed to sit in their chair, their favorite chair? Are you allowed to sit in their spot? And the answer is yes, you are. that the idea of that sacred space for a parent is only sacred when they're living. And once they are no more, they should live until 120 and beyond, and healthy and happiness and so on and so forth. But after that, that special sacred space that they occupy is no longer sacred, and you can go ahead and use it and so on and so forth. What happens if your father or mother is a teacher and you're substituting? Are you allowed to sit in that chair in that front desk, while you're teaching? And the answer is you are not. Not only are you not allowed to sit in their chair, but you're not allowed to sit in that spot. So let's say you move the chair away and you put a new chair, you can't sit in that spot. You got to teach from the side. You got to teach on the side. If this is my dad's lectern or my mom's lectern, I would have to teach from over here on the side or on this side. I can't just move the chair away. This whole space becomes their space. Okay, but after someone passes away, a parent passes away, that space becomes free and open to every single person. So how we speak about a parent after they die also matters. But all these things, again, are not just customs. They're designed to ensure that there's some level of reverence that you feel towards your parents. Yeah?
Do you think that's more for you, respecting your parents, for the students and the community, or both?
I think it's both. I mean, it's about creating a culture of respect and honor. Remember that our parents are often, our relation with our parents often describe the relation we have with God. It's not an accident. So the more contentious the relationship we have with our parents, the more contentious our relation with God is. That's just the way it goes. They're interconnected somehow. You can't escape it. So the avodah of kibbud av v'em is part of that process of finding or fixing or enhancing that relationship with Borei Olam.
It's also on the right side of
The brain?
the clothes.
Oh, yeah, we spoke about that, meaning it's on the right side, and it's that fifth commandment because it bridges between the laws between man and God and man and man. You want to add?
So plenty of people that have their relationship with their parents, they have no relationship with God. And vice versa.
No, it's true. So we're not talking about a relationship because there's no mitzvah to have a relationship with your parents. The mitzvah is to honor them. Not everyone honors their parents. Yes, anyone can have a relation with their parents, and there are plenty of people that have amazing relationships. They're very friendly and so on and so forth. That doesn't mean you're honoring them. We're specifically talking over here about the mitzvah of honoring your parents. And we said there's two different parts to this. One is honor, and the other is having awe of your parents. Those are hard things to do. Who does that today? I want you to know I try to do it to the best of my ability, and I want you to know it's hard. Try it. Go through these halachot over here and try to apply them. It's not easy. So we're talking specifically about this mitzvah of working on building a different type of relationship with your parent. Not just the relationship. That's easy. Everyone here should have, hopefully, a relationship with your parent. But I'm talking about honoring your parent. I'm talking about revering your parent. That's totally different than just having a relationship with your parent. How are you adding those elements into your relationship is what the halacha is. Yeah. Not necessarily, because let's say, God forbid, a parent, for whatever reason, just checks out. And you never met your father or your mother. And now it's 40 years later and they just come into your lives and they've genetically proved that this is your parent. You have to apply all those laws of kibbud av v'em with that person, even if there's no relationship. That means you stand up for them, that you don't speak their name, everything starts at that moment. So no, you don't need the relationship to be present. It's easier when there's a relationship. It's easier to honor your parent when you like them, when they're nice to you, and not abusing you. But obviously, but irrespective, there's still that challenge that you and I need to work on and building that relationship. Okay, great. Number 10. Okay, if one's father or mother has become mentally insane, he should make an effort to behave toward them according to their state of mind until they will be shown mercy. But if it is impossible for him to stand it because they become utterly insane, I'm not sure what the difference between insane and utterly insane is, he may leave them and go away, charging other people proper care for them. So this is actually, I don't know, hopefully no one here ever has to deal with a parent that completely loses their mind. But today you have other things like dementia, and they don't know who you are, and it's really annoying, and it's so painful, and that whole process is so hard. Well, how much of yourself do you have to go ahead and take responsibility for them, right? So let's say, God forbid, a parent is at a state where you can't care for them anymore. Or maybe you can care for them, and your spouse doesn't want to care for them, and you're debating about going and putting them in some nursing home. Are you allowed to put your parent into a nursing home? It's a great question. This is a huge question in halakha today about whether or not you're allowed to put your parents in a nursing home. So ideally, the halakha is, if you can take your parents into your home, it's better to take them into your home. Why? They're going to get much better care in a nursing home, because the mitzvah is for you to take care of them. That's the mitzvah. You have to take care of your parents. Now, if they're going to get much better care in a nursing home, or if it's going to cause shalom bayit at home, you take them, send them away like this. We don't disrupt your shalom bayit at home for your parents, taking care of them. Yeah.
What if it's the reverse, if the child is incapacitated in some way, or has some sort of mental disability?
Mm-hmm.
What's the expectation of that?
The parents have a responsibility to take care of the child.
No, but in terms of respect and overall,
Listen, if a parents can keep today they'll tell you that if parents have the ability of dealing with a child with special needs, they should keep them at home. It's better. But at some point, and I have friends, who unfortunately have children like this, it's too hard to keep them at home. It's too dangerous with other children in the house. It's complicated. You can't keep them there.
even just generally the expectation of a child with special needs to maintain what the average person is supposed to maintain in terms of a respectful relationship with their parents. How can you put that expectation on a person with special needs, if at all?
The special needs child doesn't have the expectation of the parents, but the parents have an expectation to the child.
I'm not talking about caretaking. I'm talking about just the general topic of what
If you have the maturity of a 4-year-old and you're 30, then that's your reality. You know what I'm saying?
it just doesn't apply.
Doesn't apply to them. Doesn't apply to them. Yeah, it doesn't apply to them. I used to work in a special needs home, and I had plenty of parents coming and visiting and so on and so forth. By the way, visiting is a whole other thing. I'm going to take your question in a second. But there's a mitzvah for you to visit your parents, not just to talk to them on the phone. There's actually halakha. There's a she'ela in halakha. If you're allowed to move away from your parents, how far are you allowed to move? It's like an interesting question. It's brought down halakha. Well, ideally, you should live as close as possible, right? Ideally, right? If you're going to move far away, how fast can you get there if they need you, and so on and so forth. If you can't visit them every single day, do you have a rotation with siblings that are coming in to visit them? If you're the only person there that can do the job, are you allowed to leave? It's these are complicated halachot. Yeah. Yeah, because they apply to in-laws, because in the same way that your spouse has an obligation to their in-laws. As a matter of fact, it's brought down from a pasuk in David HaMelech. David HaMelech called Shaul Avi, my father. Right? So we learn from there that since David HaMelech called Shaul his father, and remember, Shaul hated him, right? He was super abusive, and he wanted him dead. So for David to call his father, his Shaul father, they say because of that, we learn from there that even a father-in-law who is super, destructive, still has to be respected like a father in that relationship, as long as they're married. Yeah. Good question. Yes?
I'm just wondering, what's the reason for the order here? Why does it go from parents?
That's a good question. So the Shulchan Aruch had a logic and rhyme to what he did. He just wrote it in the order that he felt was the most suitable. There's no real, one isn't more important than the other. A lot of the times I find that the order of the halachot are just designed based on his notes, so how he went through Shas and where he pulled out the halachot from, because everything has to be sourced. Every halacha here, that's why I like the Shulchan Aruch, is because everything he's saying is coming from the Talmud. He's not just telling you his opinion. He's bringing you a source from the Gemara that these are the cases that are brought down in the Gemara. He's just making it in an orderly fashion in one place for you to find everything. Otherwise, you'd find these halachot scattered between 3 or 4 different mesachtot in Shas, and one on a page, and one every 10 pages, so he just ordered it for you. So sometimes just in that order, but I don't think there's no real order here. Okay. Okay, so we said mentally insane. Okay, so now 11. If one saw that his father was transgressing a Torah matter, he should not say to him, you transgress the Torah matter. Rather, you should say to him, Father, such and such is written in the Torah. We did this. As he's asking him, not warning him, and will understand his own, and embarrassed, okay, the father said his mistake in teaching, he should not say to him, do not teach it thus. Any other questions on that? Great. Number 12. If his father said to him, give me water to drink, and there's another passing commandment before him to do, such as burying the dead or a funeral, If it is possible for the commandment to be done by others, he should occupy himself with honor of his father. Meaning, if someone else could bury this person, burying the dead or getting your father a drink, your father's drink comes first, just to show you how important getting your father a drink is. But if he began the commandment first, he should finish it. As one who is occupied with the commandment is exempt from another commandment, right? Osek b'mitzvah. But if there are no others there to do it, he should occupy himself with the commandment and leave the honor of his father. So there's, according to the Beit Yosef and the Ran, but if there's no one else to bury the person, obviously you got to bury him first, and therefore that shows you how important the mitzvah mess is. However, in the times of commandment is not passing, he should occupy himself with the honor of his father and not the commandment afterwards. So, depending on how the command was issued, right, will determine the response itself. You see the dead body, and you're like, before you take care of that, I need a glass of water. No, you would have to go ahead and take care of the body first, and then get your father the glass of water. Torah study is greater than honoring a father and a mother, which means, according to that particular state, you might think that, well, if you have a choice between sitting all day and learning and exempting yourself from honoring your parents, you could sit and learn all day. So the answer is yes, to some extent. However, there's still a mitzvah to visit your parents. As a matter of fact, bachorim in yeshiva have a mitzvah to go home to visit their parents. They have to go back, especially during Ben Zmanim, they have to spend time with their parents. That's part of the mitzvah of kibbud avim. How often do you make time, to visit your parents, to fulfill the mitzvah of kibbud avim? Not just to go home to do your laundry or to get stuff from your house, because I have to do it, but to actually work on the mitzvah of spending time with your parents. It's hard. Yeah.
At what age does this start to technically apply? It's not
Bar bat mitzvah.
Okay. How would it apply to like slightly younger kids who, let's say, are away from camp?
No, it's slightly younger kids who are away from camp. Obviously, it doesn't apply to them. They're not there. Just like when a boy's in yeshiva for one zman, he's not home either. He can't visit. Yeah, you should definitely if you can definitely communicate, call them is fine. Phone call. We were very makpid that every single night we wanted a summary from our kids in yeshiva. I want a WhatsApp message. It's got to be at least a minute and a half long. I want to know everything that happened that day, every day. Every day. Yes, they did that. That's you. That's me exercising my honoring my parent cause, and if I could go ahead and use that I want it. Why not? That's part of being a parent. You got to know what the rules are, so you could go ahead and apply them. Right? Oh, that's the halacha. Sorry, you're in yeshiva. Go learn about it, my friend. Every day, baby. 6 o'clock, on time. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. So number 14. If a father said to him, "Give me water to drink," and his mother said to him, "Give me water to drink," he leaves the mother, occupied himself with the honor of the father, and there's divorce from his father. He may do the same, so he can make his first word. So let's say both parents are divorced, and both parents ask you at the same time, who do you give it to? The one that you like the most. Yeah. Actually. What? No, let's say that everything's equidistant. Everything happened exactly at the same exact time. Both shoes dropped at the same time. Who do you do first? The one that you like the most. It's true, but not when it comes to parents. Now, okay, fine. So if the father said to him, transgress a Torah matter, I want you to bring me the remote control on Shabbat, or change the channel for me, turn on the air conditioning, whether a negative commandment or positive commandment, even a rabbinic commandment, he should not listen to him. Let's say your parents ask you to buy them cigarettes. Can you buy your parents cigarettes? You know what the answer is? Depends how much on sale there. No, because that's the money. Anyway, the answer is no, you can't. Why? Because the Torah says, right? You have a mitzvah of taking tishmor nefshecha ma'od. You have a responsibility to be healthy, and therefore, if your parents ask you to do something that is super unhealthy, you can use that as a way of kind of blocking them and saying no. Yes.
Do you just not respond? Or
No, you could say, I love you so much, Ma, but I have no responsibility, or Dad, no responsibility to buy you cancer sticks
Or enable
or other types of negative behavior. So let's say your father has like a issue with like blood pressure, and he likes salty like garanim, and he says lech tikni li garanim, and you're like no, I can't do it. Sorry, doctor said no. You can't even buy it for them. You're not buying it for them. You're not buying it for them. You're not giving it to them. Nothing. No responsibility there. You're free. Okay. Okay. Next, if a father commands his son not to speak with X and not to forgive him until a set time, whereas the son wants to appease him immediately, or not for his father's commandment, he should not be concerned about the father's command. Okay? What's that? Remember that the Torah itself has its own interests in creating a peaceful society. We say, Darcheya, Darchei Noam, B'kol Netivateya, Shalom. Right? It's all about peace. And therefore, if the father is preventing peace, or even if a father, we talk about how important honoring the father is, but if a father is doing something that prevents shalom from happening, we ignore the dad. He's got to be out of his mind, yeah.
Is it fair to say that some of these are like, we're not making any distinctions here, but is it fair to say some of these are like they're abundant, some of these are deraisa, or they're all like?
So it's, I would say some of these are derabanan, some of them are deraisa, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say all of these are d'oraita. The question is, well, what does it mean to honor the parent, right? So it's complicated. So because it's what, and not only that, remember, this is one of the 10 commandments. Sephardim don't stand for the Aseret Dibrot. Ashkenazim do. Whenever you read the Aseret Dibrot in the Bet Knesset, Ashkenazim stand, Sephardim don't stand. The way we get around it is on Shavuot. If you were here early in the morning, what's that? You give the rabbi an aliyah, therefore we stand for the rabbi, but now it's just a kind of sketch move. But, I'll stand up for the rabbi and then I'll sit down for the aliyah. I won't stand the whole time because that's my minhag, right? So we want to show honor, but it's a very sensitive topic. Honoring your parents is super sensitive. I just want you to walk away with this deeper thinking about, am I really thinking more profoundly, more deeply? Like, am I thinking like an adult? A thinking adult about what it means to honor and revere my parents. That's all I want you to be doing. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. You're all adults, you'll figure it out. This is a baseline to be thinking about. But certainly we all need to be upgrading the way we think about our relation with our parents. Okay. Number 17. Both man and woman are the same regarding the honor and the fear of the father and mother. However, the woman does not have the wherewithal in her hand to do it since she is bound by her husband. Therefore, she is exempt to honor her father. Spoke about this, I believe. And mother while she's married, but if she's divorced or widowed, she's obligated. So when you're married, you still have your responsibility goes to your spouse first, and then your parents, and that goes for both husband and wife. A mamzer, number 18, someone born from a forbidden union is obligated in honoring his father and in his not sure what that means. And in his fear? In honoring his father and in fearing him. Okay. Even his father is wicked and sinful, he must honor him and fear him. Okay, now this is a very interesting, long conversation in halakha about how one honors a parent that's absent. Is there a scenario where a parent can lose his or her status of kibud av v'em? Bless you. Okay, good question. Right, so it's complicated. There are some sources that will say no. No matter what the scenario is a parent forever, and therefore you can't go ahead and can cancel kibud av v'em. However, there are things that a parent can do that will change his status from a parent to a rasha. And if a parent has the status of a rasha, then there is room in halakha to say that that person loses the status of kibud av v'em. Okay, what does that look like? That's one of those personal questions, depending on the relationship, circumstance, and all those things kind of play a role into it. I know of a case where a kid was told by a posek that he has no obligation to honor his or fear his father because of the things that person did to that child and the relation with the family and so on and so forth. They were very involved, and like in that specific case, he was told he had no obligation. That was a posek giving him a psak halacha. So I know it is possible, it is unusual, and it is rare. but it is possible. And I think that the point here is that sometimes for the parent, because parents learn halachot also, right? The parents are learning halachot because they want to know how to be good children, hopefully, because they have parents, but also so when they think about their own children, how to go ahead and instill these qualities in their kids. Parents have to be mindful that it's not carte blanche. No matter what you do, you're going to just get honor from your children. There are limitations to how much honor and reverence a child can give to a parent if the parents abuse that relationship. And therefore, even though we spoke a lot about how you can't contradict your parent, you can't go ahead and tell them that they are right or wrong, whatever it is, but there are ways of speaking to your parents and telling them things you aren't happy about. You could tell your parents you're not happy. You could tell your parents you don't like it when you're spoken to that way. You could go ahead and speak back. You could go push back on things that you don't like. You just got to do it in the most respectful way in the world. Ma, Dad, I love you so much. Thank you so much for everything you do. I'm so indebted and great everything that you do for me. However, X, Y, and Z really is painful for me. I want you to be aware of it so that you can make a change. You could say that. There's no Isur in saying that. There's no Isur in making and lodging a complaint. There's no Isur in challenging them in a respectful kind of way. But no matter what the scenario is, you still have to figure out a way of doing it in a respectful way. Yeah.
I guess I have a follow-up to that. So usually that doesn't, parents don't remember that for so long. So let's say the relationship is tense. Can a child create distance? If you're not next to
If the sake of distance is for shalom, then the answer is yes. Right? So, of course, there's, if the sake is distance of shalom, yeah, you could do it. But you still have to be proactively working on repairing the relationship. What's that? I mean, yeah, you can go, again, each parent is there. Like my mom explicitly says, I want you to call me every single day. I'm like, but not on Shabbat, right? She's like, yeah, not on Shabbat. I'm like, okay, I just want to make sure. She's like, but technically it's still every day because it's Motzei Shabbat. So it's Friday and Saturday. It's just like whatever it is. She's like, she knows all the loopholes already. So, but yeah, that's what she wants. So I have to do it. So I try my best to call her every single day, and I generally have a very good routine of doing it. No, so again, when a parent does something, let's say parents are divorced, and one parent feels that the other parent did something that was so horrible, and they don't want you talking to the other parent. What do you do? Right? And now that one parent is gone, the other parent is supporting you, and you're in their space. What do you do? It's complicated. It's not easy. But I would say that I know of scenarios where this comes up a lot. It's been divorced parents. Well, let's say someone's getting married, and one parent doesn't want the other parent to be there at the day of the wedding. What do? Who do you listen to? The parent that wants them there, the parent doesn't want. It's complicated. Again, each scenario is different and very difficult. Each situation requires its own sheilot to it. But certainly, I wouldn't say yes, no, don't. There are scenarios where a parent should not be there, depending on what they did. A parent who cheats another parent. Okay, them being there is an affront to that other parent, and there, whatever it is. So, depending on how the scenario works itself out, each parent is different. Obviously, people forgive. Obviously, you want people to forgive. You want people to move on, and so on and so forth. But depending on when it happened, how it happened, where it happened, they want to come with their girlfriend that they cheated on. It's just all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah.
But if both parents are equal, there's not a priority to honor your mother because she's the birth giver?
No, they're both equal. Yeah.
Does it matter if the parent in question that's being told not to come is indifferent and it's just the kid who wants them there?
If the parent that's indifferent, then what's the question?
Meaning, does it make a difference whether one parent is saying don't invite the other parent to your wedding and the kid just wants them there versus if the other parent wants to be there and they're the deadbeat mom, dad, whatever?
Again, case by case. Depends on how it happened, what happened, and I'm telling you, I feel so frustrated just reviewing all this stuff because I don't feel like there's so many questions I don't have answers to, and you keep seeing tzarach Ian, like go back, ask the question, go to your local Orthodox rabbi. Like there's no sense of like 100% explicit. This is how you do it because each situation is so specific and requires its own unique kind of attention. Okay, let's try to finish this. It is forbidden for a parent to make number 19. It is forbidden for the parent to make his yoke heavy upon the child and to be exacting with him about his honor, so as not to bring them to an obstacle. We spoke about this. Rather, he should forgive his river his eyes. This is the father gives him the honor. He's given him his forgiven. Okay, number 20. They would excommunicate someone who strikes his adult son. Behold, he is transgressing. You shall not put an obstacle in front of the blind. But regarding this, he is only called adult after he is 22 or 24. We spoke about that, years old. Okay, a person is obligated to honor his wife and the wife of his father, even though she is not his mother, stepmom. So long as his father is alive, he is obligated to honor his mother's husband, so long as his mother is alive. But after the blood relative's death, he's not obligated in their honor. Nevertheless, it is a proper thing to honor them even after their death. Meaning there's no halachic obligation, but the nice, social thing to do is to continue that honor out of respect for your parents. A person,
Just wondering this question in my head, and I'm curious if this answers it through this paragraph. Like if a couple gets divorced, and let's say it's the yard site every year of the one parent, does the other divorced parent have any sort of obligation to
No.
continue making the visit?
No. I'm involved in a situation right now where I know a couple's getting divorced and they've been delaying it, and I keep saying I want this thing to happen sooner than later, because let's say God forbid this other person dies, why should you sit shiva for a person you're trying to divorce? And once you're divorced, there's no more shiva anymore. There's nothing. It's over. All ties are cut. Yeah.
So there's no obligation, but still keep it aim if you do it correct.
I didn't say that. I said there's no obligation, and as not even as kibbut avim. I just said that I would say more from out of respect, cultural thing to do to show it them, but no obligation.
Honor to your stepmother, your father.
Correct. It's not considered kibbut avim anymore. Correct. As long once the parent has passed, there's no obligation there, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It's just a nice thing to do. Out of, for example, halakha says that if let's say you go to a store and you have a non-Jewish store owner who gives you the wrong change, do you have a halachic obligation to give the money back? And the answer is not halachically, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't give the money back. Yeah.
Yeah, would that apply as well to a stepmother or father that was then divorced from?
No, once they're divorced, there's no obligation.
Excuse me?
Once they're divorced, there's no obligation.
I got you.
So if let's say your father married 4 times,
I got you.
then no, the ones that are out are out. Okay, so all right, an older brother, number 23. Are we at it? No, number 22. Sorry, a person is obligated to honor his older brother, whether he is his brother from his father or whether he's his brother from his mother. How confusing! And even if the younger one is a Torah scholar and greater in Torah than the older one, right, he still has to give him honor. And so was understood within the okay, fine, that's what you see over there, that you have a chiyuv to honor your siblings as because it's correlated to kibbut avim. Okay? Yes. They should stand up. They should show honored sibling. Okay. An older brother who cursed and disgraced his brother who was a Torah scholar but younger than him, and the younger one excommunicated the older one, he did well to excommunicate him. Good job. For since he does not show favor to the Torah, he does not do the deeds of your people such that he is not obligated to honor him. So you can't lose honor between brothers. And if he does something that is horrible, then you can go ahead and apply the laws irrespective of that family kinship. Okay. 24. A person is obligated to honor his father-in-law. And some say that a person is not obligated to honor his grandfather, but this does not appear correct to me. Rather, he is obligated to honor his father more than that of his grandfather. Okay, the proof from this is the Midrash regarding, and he offered a sacrifice to God from Yitzchak. Okay, fine. So grandparents fall into the same category of kibbut av, but obviously your relationship with your parents come first. But since you have an obligation to honor your parents have an obligation to honor their grandparents, you still have a chiyuv to honor your grandparents. Number 25, last. And certainly, but not least, if the father wants to serve his son, it is permissible to accept it from him unless the father is a Torah personality, Ben Torah, student who wants to go to another place, since he is sure that he will see a sign of blessing in his learning in front of the teacher who is there, but the father protests to him since he's worried that the idolaters in the city are, in that city libel the Jews, does not need to listen to his father about this. Okay, this is a very important halakha. This is, I think, one of the most important halakhas. It's super applicable today. Suppose you want to go to yeshiva or seminary in Israel right now, okay, during this conflict in Israel. And your parents are saying, absolutely not. You're not allowed to go to Israel. I forbid you to go. If you go, it's a breach of kibbutz avim. You pull the Shulchan Aruch, you show them this halakha, it says, nah, I can still go. If it comes to you believing that there's another place in the world where you can learn and grow as a person spiritually, that you can't get locally, you have no obligation to listen to your parents when it comes to traveling. Now, it's interesting, it's such a relevant halakha today. How did this get in there 500 years ago? Were people experiencing these issues 500 years ago? And the answer is yes. Do you know why? Up until about 800 years ago, the custom was that everyone went to yeshiva, not in Israel, but in Iraq. Every Jew went to yeshiva in one place. They went to Iraq. They went to one yeshiva in Iraq. That's where everyone went to. They went to yeshiva in Iraq. That was the best schools. The Iraqi yeshiva were the best schools. Everyone went to Iraq. It started changing a little bit in the 13th and 14th century when the two things happened. One is you had the Rashi and the Balei Tosafot. Rashi in France basically created a whole new institution which separated itself from all the Jews going to Iraq. All the Jews from the 1st century in Europe until about the 14th century in Europe, all Ashkenazi Sephardim went to one yeshiva. There was no breakaway Sephardi Ashkenazi because they all went to the same school. But the breakaway started when they started building yeshivot in Europe. And what happened in both communities, in the Ashkenaz and Sephardim, when they were wealthy enough to be able to afford to hire the rabbis and build their own local yeshivot. And that's how you had that schism that happened. But up until then, everyone was traveling. So let's say you were living in Spain or Germany or France or wherever it is, and you went to a yeshiva in Iraq, because that's where they had a better yeshiva. Or you had a rabbi in Toledo now who was better than the rabbi in Worms. Your parents say no, you can still go. So even back then, people were traveling to other places to go ahead and figure out a way of learning. I think that the most important part over here, as far as ending this halakha, is that ultimately we want you to be someone who is growing and developing yourselves. One way of doing that is with honoring your parents. For some people, by the way, it's learning how to honor God, and then that trickles downward. Sometimes it's about learning how to honor yourself and having that be a catalyst for you honoring your parents. But either way, there's one thing that's certain, that our responsibility is to not allow ourselves to remain status quo. We need to be upgrading our relationships on everywhere across the board. If we don't create a level of importance to these relationships, they will never be important. And what's really happening is that you're just feeding a narcissistic thinking process that the only relationship that's important is my own, with me and myself. When in reality, the way we become greater human beings is through that humility of recognizing that there are other relationships that require more effort than me thinking about me, but rather me thinking about the other. In that merit, may we all find our shidduchim at the right time, at the right place, soon. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much for coming.